Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 126 and we have a good one for you today. Today's fish is a fish that you've definitely seen if you've been to any of the large aquariums, and you might have even pet this fish. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is the cownose ray. So the cownose ray, or scientific name Rhinoptera bonacis, again that's Rhinoptera bonacis, it is part of the family Rhinopteridae, which is the family of cownose rays. Now you might be thinking that because it's the family of cownose rays that this fish is a family. There are multiple species of cownose ray, but the one we're talking about is commonly called the cownose ray. It's more like the common cownose ray. It's not even the type specimen of the family. The type specimen, I believe, is the Lusitanian cownose ray, but I'm not entirely sure there. But yeah, so you can go look up that if you want, but we're talking about the cownose ray, the common cownose ray. So the cownose ray is native to the Western Atlantic. It gets along the Eastern Atlantic, but I believe it's primarily found along the Western Atlantic, and all the way on the Western Atlantic from New England down to Brazil. So you go from New England down the coast of Florida, all along the Gulf of Mexico, down to Brazil. It's got this extremely large range, and they are actually migratory and schooling. So you can see here, there's a massive school of cownose rays moving along the bottom, which is interesting, but not necessarily a great thing. They are native to marine and brackish waters. So right where the saltwater and freshwater interface is, that's where what kind of brackish means. But it's only really, even though it has that large range, that long range, it's really only found in shallow water. You're really not going to find these deeper than about 22 meters, which is about 70 feet. I think like 71, 72-ish feet is 22 meters. So you're not really going to find it any deeper than that. In terms of size, it's really a medium-sized ray. If you've seen these before, you're not intimidated by these. It's definitely not the size of like the giant manta ray, but it's a little bit larger than like the other rays that we've talked about, which I believe the only other ray we've talked about on this channel is the marbled electric ray. So the marbled electric ray, it's definitely bigger than that. They are about 1.1 meters, about 45 inches across. Obviously they have wings, so it's a little bit inflated, I guess you should say. And they weigh about 23 kilograms, which is about 50 pounds. But that doesn't surprise me either, because rays are actually just slabs of muscle. There is a lot of muscle going on in this fish right here. It does have this brown back with this white underside. The coloration is just not going to mean anything to you. It's bland color, it's brown, white side. What makes it different is this broad head with the wide eyes, and honestly, how are you gonna get that? This shape is instantly recognizable. You see here, boom, cownose ray. Boom, cownose ray. And this is why my wife, Mrs. Ping, loves this fish. If you look at it from the underside, you can see the fish, these extremely broad head, these wide set eyes. It is looking at you, and then it has a smile. It's smiling at you. She loves this fish. She loves going to the aquariums and petting this. Yeah, she just loves it. It does have all these fins. It does have a subrostral fin that it uses, which we'll get into it later. But what's interesting is the teeth don't actually look like that on the inside. In fact, I meant to have a picture pulled up, but I forgot to have a picture. You go to Wikipedia. Eventually. So in its mouth, this is what the cownose ray teeth look like if you actually have them explained. These dental plates right here. Doesn't have teeth, it has dental plates, which are basically like fused teeth. Really interesting, and a lot of rays have this. We've talked about this before. Now, it does have a spine. You can see it. Is that the spine? I don't know a lot about rays, so I think that's the spine. I thought the spine was set farther back, but maybe not. I'm not sure. It does have a spine. That does have toxin. It is a slight toxin. Apparently it's very similar to a bee sting. I imagine that means that the toxin hurts about a bee sting, but you're still getting stabbed with a spike, so it probably still hurts quite a bit. The more important thing is don't put your fingers in here or you'll hurt more, and I promise you that will hurt. And that is because the cownose ray actually feeds upon mollusks, so clams, oysters, hard invertebrates. This thing eats very hard things. So what it's doing is it's just crushing them. I mean, that's, we'll get into it a little bit about their feeding habits, because that's actually an interesting fact that we're going to do a video on. Now, talking about this, obviously, the reason why people have seen this, don't look at that picture. Ignore that picture. The reason why people have seen these is these are extremely common in aquarium. That's why. They're very common in what aquariums call the touch tanks, where you can go up, you got this this very low-walled aquarium. You go up, you lean over the side, and then you put your hand down, or you have some food, and then the cownose rays come up. This is one of the most common fish in that type of aquarium. They're very, very docile. Very, very docile. They're just going swinging and swinging around. Usually the barbs have been clipped or pinched or like rubber banded to the tail, so just in case they do get agitated, they don't just accidentally whip someone, because I imagine insurance companies would not like that. Don't worry if their spine does get clipped. It just regrows. It's very similar to a fingernail. So it's safe, it's safe to clip them, and they're very safe to touch. Like, I'm not worried about this. Just don't stick your fingers in the mouth. Those things will hurt you. If not, just shatter your bone. One interesting fact about this fish, though, in the reproductive strategy, this fish actually does give live birth. The embryo grows inside with the wings folded in his body. It's like imagine if you took it just makes its own swaddle with its wings. It's just going meh. And then it's nourished. Initially it is nourished by the egg yolk, and then later the mother actually nourishes it inside the uterus. After a period of gestation of about a year long, I believe it's about a year, the offspring is born tail first, and there it goes. It's just a baby cownose ray, and it swims off and does its thing. Now, something about the number of populations. This fish is actually listed as a vulnerable fish, meaning that it is vulnerable and could become endangered in the future. And that was not always the case, and it's not even in the case in certain areas. In the late 80s, early 90s, there was a huge push by multiple governments, not just the United States, but to do shark control. And a lot of sharks got killed, including hammerhead sharks, which is pretty much like the only predator of the cownose ray, is a hammerhead shark. And so when all these sharks got killed, and unfortunately we can attribute a lot of that shark killing to the movie Jaws. I'm not a fan of Jaws, not because of what it did, but I just don't think it's a good movie. It's one of Mrs. Ping's favorite movies. Like, she loves Jaws so much. And I just can't get behind it. It's one of the few movies that feature a fish that I can't get behind. Anyway, but when all those sharks died, the cownose ray populations in certain areas absolutely exploded to the point that it was really, really bad. Like incredibly overpopulated. Which actually led to like some countries saying, hey, fish the crap out of these. But meanwhile, in other areas, they were being overexploited, and because of pollution factors and things like that, their population was actually decreasing. In some areas, the population decreased as much as 50%. So half of the population gone. I believe if you took the entire species, the entire decline is somewhere around 25 to 30%, which is still a significant drop, but they are actually a problem in certain areas. So you got to be aware of that. And the reason why they're a problem, we're actually going to get into right now. And that's how they eat and all they or what they eat. So as you heard, or as we talked about, this fish is eating mollusks, oysters, clams, very hard mollusks. Well, if you know anything about it, oysters are actually a little bit endangered. Oyster beds are endangered. It's actually critical habitat. They're very done. So in these areas that have oyster beds that also cownose rays get extremely overpopulated, it creates a little bit of a perfect storm for problems. How it does this, now we can go to this picture. Now you can see those two fins that were on the top. So these two fins right here, I know it doesn't look like there are actually fins up there, but there actually are. They bring those fins down and basically make a suction cup against the ground, sucking the oysters and everything else up into its mouth, where it just crushes it, like just crunches and crunches. That's why you don't stick your fingers in it, because if you can imagine these dental plates, just kind of your fingers powder. I promise you, these things don't have it. In fact, those dental plates are, not only do they have an extremely strong bite, but the dental plates actually have a hardness comparable to that of cement. So imagine a cement roller just being held and just crunching it powdered it. I don't know. But the reason why it's such an issue is these are a schooling fish, as you saw in one of those other pictures. They're a schooling fish, and they will get together. And when they do actually swim in groups, especially large groups, they use synchronized wing flaps to stir up sediment to expose buried clams and oysters, which is a very interesting adaptation, especially for group survival. Basically, the entire group goes to an area and it just fans the area, gets all the loose sand and sediment off the top of these clams and oysters and expose them, and then they just absolutely decimate that population. They'll eat all of them, which is both, it's fascinating, but it's also a cause of concern, because they will destroy these oyster beds that are already in trouble, again, due to human pollution factors, but they're already in trouble. So because of that kind of perfect storm, and this is why it's an interesting fact. You think about all the things that kind of have to happen for the cownose ray to decimate a local oyster population. Kind of the humans, and it's definitely tied to root cause. I'm not saying this is happening, but you can envision this sort of timeline. Humans try to kill sharks, cownose ray populations go up. Human population goes up, and human pollution causes oyster beds to become in trouble. The increase in population of cownose rays caused from human interference now decimates the already in trouble oyster beds that are in trouble because of human interaction. Like, let's be honest, humans have done a lot to kind of mess up the world's oceans. I'm just going to say that. Anyway, but thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you do. I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and peace.